Welcome back to Retro Laws. In tonight's story, we're dissecting a bloody attack in the woods and the sudden disappearance of the mayor's daughter, Emma Rowland. Let's step into the worn boots of Matthew Williams, racing against time to find her in Mizzurna Falls. Chapter 1: The Silent Snow of 1998. The narrative opens on the cold morning of December 25th in 1998. A quiet town named Mizzurna Falls sits tucked away at the base of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Heavy snow covers the winding asphalt roads, and dense pine trees crowd the silent horizon. The crisp mountain air feels thick with a heavy, unexplainable sense of small-town dread. Inside a modest studio in Japan, a game developer called Human Entertainment released a revolutionary video game on the original PlayStation console. They wanted to build something the video game world had never witnessed before. Their vision was to create a living American town, driven entirely by a real-time clock system. Most video game players in Japan had no idea they were stepping into a genuine pioneer of open-world storytelling. The atmospheric winter setting established the perfect tone for an unforgettable murder mystery experience. To truly appreciate this game, you must look at the landscape of gaming in 1998. Interactive media was transitioning from simple two-dimensional pixel sprites into complex three-dimensional virtual environments. Players were exploring groundbreaking titles that redefined what virtual worlds could look like. However, almost every game kept players locked inside rigid, linear pathways. You completed one stage to unlock the next level on a linear track. Human Entertainment chose a far more dangerous and creative direction for their ambitious new project. They wanted to give players absolute freedom inside a massive, fully interactive mountain environment. You could get into a compact car, drive down any mountain road, and speak with any citizen in town. They created a virtual sandbox long before that specific term gained popularity in mainstream gaming culture. The central story begins with a violent, terrifying event deep within the freezing local wilderness. Just after 6 o'clock on Christmas morning, a local hunter finds a 16-year-old girl named Kathy Flannery. She lies unconscious in the snow, covered in fresh, dark blood. Brutal claw wounds cover her entire body from head to toe. The local authorities quickly assume a starving wild bear attacked her in the woods. However, the horror facing the town does not end with Kathy's sudden discovery. Just 1 hour later, another tragedy strikes the quiet, unsuspecting mountain community. 18-year-old Emma Rowland suddenly vanishes from her family bedroom without leaving a single trace. Her bed sits empty, and her panicked mother alerts the police department immediately. You experience this dark mystery through the eyes of a high school student named Matthew Williams. Matthew is a pragmatic, grounded young man who lives alone in a small private shed behind his uncle's store. He does not believe in ghost stories, local curses, or supernatural rumors. He relies strictly on cold facts, simple logic, and physical evidence. On Christmas morning, his bedroom telephone rings early and wakes him from a peaceful sleep. His close classmate Winona Ringwald is crying uncontrollably on the telephone line. She informs him that Emma has vanished without explaining where she was going. Matthew looks closely at a framed photograph sitting on his wooden nightstand. The picture shows his best friends smiling together during a warm summer barbecue. He realizes his quiet life in Mizzurna Falls will never feel safe or peaceful again. The town of Mizzurna Falls itself feels like a primary character in this complex narrative web. It is an isolated rural community tucked far away from major modern cities. Winding asphalt roads connect a network of small, widely scattered wooden buildings. You will find a cozy local diner, a quiet church, a gas station, and a dim mountain bar. Dense forests of dark spruce pine trees closely surround every single structure in town. Thick white fog hangs low over the frozen lake, blocking out the pale winter sunlight. The environment builds a profound sense of spatial melancholy and atmospheric dread. The natural beauty of the snowy landscape contrasts sharply with the ugly human secrets buried deep within the town. What made this title truly incredible was its revolutionary real-time clock mechanics. Time inside the game world moves continuously forward without stopping. Exactly 5 minutes of real-world gameplay time equals 1 full hour of virtual in-game time. The game clock never stops ticking while you walk, drive across town, or question local citizens. If you stand motionless in the middle of a street, time continues to flow past you uninterrupted. Bright sunsets fade into pitch-black nights, and cold morning light eventually breaks through the fog. This mechanic creates constant psychological pressure for the player at every turn. Every single second you waste brings Emma Rowland closer to a terrifying permanent fate. In almost every traditional video game of that era, non-player characters stood completely still like frozen statues. They repeated the exact same lines of dialogue whenever you pressed an interaction button. Mizzurna Falls entirely rejected that lazy, conventional design philosophy. Every resident living in this mountain town possesses a fully individual daily routine. Characters wake up in the morning, cook breakfast, drive to work, and return home to sleep. A key suspect might sit inside the diner at noon, but move to the tavern at 8 o'clock. If you show up late for a planned meeting, that person will not wait for you. They simply walk away and continue following their independent daily schedule. To travel across this large map, Matthew drives a small red compact automobile. It is a close reproduction of a classic Volkswagen Beetle. Driving across town requires genuine attention to detail and careful resource management. Your vehicle features a working fuel gauge that drops as you drive down mountain roads. If you ignore your fuel level, your car engine will stall out on a deserted road at midnight. You must visit the local gas station to buy gasoline using your limited pocket money. This realistic mechanic forces you to plan every trip across the map with extreme care. Managing your fuel tank becomes just as important as gathering clues from suspicious witnesses. The hardware limits of the original PlayStation console actually enhanced the game's dark, creepy atmosphere. The console graphics chip could only render a short distance in front of the player's camera perspective. The development team concealed this technical flaw by filling the town with thick, rolling mountain fog. Building textures were pixelated and blocky, while character models consisted of basic polygon shapes. Yet, on a vintage television screen, these hardware limitations felt like deliberate artistic decisions. The natural blur of the display screen created a strange, dreamlike visual atmosphere. The sharp red glow of car taillights cutting through the dark night air felt genuinely haunting. Technical limitations successfully turned a quiet mountain town into a thick psychological nightmare. The holiday setting deepens the emotional weight of the unfolding narrative arc. Christmas is traditionally a festive season reserved for family reunions, gift exchanges, and warm gatherings. Colourful holiday lights hang along wooden storefronts, while plastic decorations sit on snow-covered lawns. However, an uncomfortable silence hangs over the empty, frozen streets. The bright, festive decorations look artificial and hollow against the backdrop of a brutal, violent crime. Small towns frequently present a cozy exterior to hide their ugliest personal secrets from outsiders. Underneath the cheerful holiday surface lies a dark web of jealousy, lies, and unspoken trauma. Christmas morning becomes a stark reminder of everything this community wants to keep hidden. Emma Rowland serves as the emotional anchor for this complex web of small-town intrigue. She is 18 years old and the daughter of the local town mayor. She is famous throughout Mizzurna Falls for her striking beauty and her talent playing classical piano music. Most townsfolk view her as the ultimate good girl with a bright, successful future ahead. Yet this perfect public image is a complete fiction created by the people surrounding her. In reality, Emma suffers from intense emotional loneliness and severe existential. She leads a secret life that even her closest childhood friends fail to understand. Her sudden disappearance shatters the town's comfortable illusions beyond repair. Matthew's internal feelings provide strong personal drive to the ongoing police investigation. He secretly harbors deep romantic feelings for Emma that he never had the courage to express aloud. He clearly remembers speaking with her beside the quiet lake just hours before she vanished into the night. She appeared distant, sad, and completely absorbed in her own private thoughts during their last conversation. He deeply regrets failing to ask what was bothering her soul on that quiet evening. Now, driven by subtle guilt and stubborn loyalty, Matthew refuses to let her become another unsolved tragedy. He jumps into the investigation despite receiving stern warnings from the local sheriff. His personal journey becomes a desperate battle against the ticking clock. When video game historians discuss groundbreaking open-world games, they usually praise Yu Suzuki's Shenmue. While Shenmue earned global acclaim on the Sega Dreamcast in late 1999, Mizzurna Falls reached store shelves first. Human Entertainment constructed a real-time murder mystery on significantly weaker hardware a full year earlier. They engineered core design mechanics that modern open-world adventure games still utilize today. You gather clues, cross-reference witness testimonies, and track suspect locations across a dynamic map. The game refuses to guide your path with hand-holding hints or floating objective markers. You must think critically, plan carefully, and act quickly if you wish to solve the mystery. Navigating through Mizzurna Falls during the quiet middle of the night evokes a rare, unforgettable mood. The yellow beam of your headlights cuts through falling snowflakes as tall spruce trees loom above. Melancholy music plays through the car speakers alongside the gentle hum of your small engine. You drive past quiet wooden houses where families sleep soundly, completely unaware of the surrounding danger. Every single intersection contains potential clues, but every passing minute consumes your precious time. You feel completely isolated within a massive, indifferent mountain environment. This haunting atmospheric design hooks players deep into the underlying mystery from the very beginning. The stage is now completely set for one of the most intense investigative experiences in retro gaming history. The real-time game clock began ticking at 6 in the morning on Christmas Day. You have exactly 7 virtual days to unravel the truth before New Year's Eve arrives. If you fail to manage your daily schedule, Emma Rowland will be found dead in the frozen forest. If you follow the right paths, you will expose the dark secrets decaying beneath this mountain town. The long journey ahead will challenge your critical thinking, patience, and resolve at every turn. The mystery of Emma Rowland's tragic vanishing is finally ready to begin. Chapter 2: Shadows in the Pines. Matthew steps outside his small home into the freezing morning wind. The cold mountain air hits his face like sharp needles. His small red car is covered under a layer of thick white frost. He scrapes the glass clean while cold exhaust smoke rises into the grey sky. Steering through the narrow streets feels heavy, ground-based, and surprisingly realistic for a game released in 1998. The original PlayStation hardware pushes its limits to render every single pine tree and wooden fence post. You can drive freely in any direction across the entire mountain map without encountering loading screens. This unguided freedom creates a profound feeling of genuine spatial exploration. However, that total open freedom brings an overwhelming sense of isolation and growing dread. You are completely alone inside a quiet, snow-covered landscape full of dark secrets. Your first logical stop on this cold morning is the local police department. The station is small, chaotic, and completely unprepared for a major crisis. Sheriff Perez sits behind a cluttered desk covered in cold coffee cups and official police papers. He views Matthew as nothing more than a meddling kid interfering with adult business. The sheriff firmly insists that Kathy Flannery was simply attacked by a hungry wild bear. He believes Emma Rowland simply got angry with her parents and ran away from home. He tells Matthew to stay out of the way and let the adults handle everything. But Matthew knows the local people and senses that something much worse is happening. He realizes the official police department will not solve this terrifying mystery in time. Driven by quiet determination, Matthew drives his car over to the town hospital. The hallway smells of harsh chemicals, rubbing alcohol, and cold winter air. Inside a dark private room, Kathy Flannery lies completely silent on a narrow hospital bed. Heavy white bandages cover her arms, face, and chest from top to bottom. She is hooked up to noisy medical machines that beep steadily in the darkness. The local doctor explains that her deep wounds were caused by sharp, heavy claws. Yet, something about the physical pattern of her injuries feels strangely intentional and wrong. Matthew stares at his broken classmate and wonders what she truly witnessed in those dark woods. He realizes that whoever hurt Kathy might also be holding Emma captive somewhere in the valley. Matthew drives out toward the edge of town to inspect the dark crime scene. Dense pine trees loom over the snowy dirt road like tall, silent shadows. The cold wind howls softly through the high branches above his head. He steps out of his car and walks carefully into the deep, untouched snow. Red police tape flutters wildly against a line of dark spruce trees. He kneels down to examine the frozen ground where Kathy was originally discovered. Deep red stains still discolor the pristine white snow near a fallen wooden log. Searching the immediate area reveals small details that busy police officers completely missed. He notices strange vehicle tire tracks leading away from the remote forest path. Someone was clearly waiting in the woods long before Kathy ever walked into the trees. Solving this complex mystery requires incredible patience, careful planning, and precise time management. Your primary tool throughout the investigation is Matthew's simple handwritten pocket notebook. Every time you discover a clue, Matthew writes down names, locations, and specific times. The game forces you to constantly track the complex daily schedules of dozens of local citizens. If you want to speak with a key suspect, you must know their location. A local mechanic might work at the gas station until 5 in the afternoon. After work, he might walk to the local tavern to drink until midnight. If you show up at his apartment at 3 o'clock, the door will be locked. Missing a crucial meeting means waiting an entire day for the opportunity to return. Communication across the wide mountain map relies entirely on vintage technology from the late 90s. Modern mobile smartphones do not exist in this isolated 1998 setting. To contact suspects or friends, Matthew must locate bright red payphone booths scattered across town. You must insert shiny metallic coins into the slot to make a short phone call. You can open public phone books or inspect handwritten notes to find local phone numbers. Standing inside a glass payphone booth while heavy snow hits the windows feels deeply atmospheric. Listening to the long dial tone ring in the quiet night builds incredible suspense. Sometimes a suspect answers the line with a nervous voice, and sometimes nobody picks up. Every failed phone call burns precious minutes off your unrelenting game clock. To gather local rumors and fresh leads, Matthew frequently stops at Norman's Diner. The warm restaurant sits near the main highway running through the center of town. Inside, the smell of burnt coffee, fried bacon, and stale cigarettes fills the warm air. Exhausted truck drivers and local residents sit quietly along the long wooden counter. Norman, the friendly diner owner, wipes down the counter while sharing quiet small-town gossip. He reveals that Emma Rowland looked deeply troubled during her last visit to the restaurant. She sat alone in a back corner booth, staring blankly out the window for hours. Norman mentions that she received an anonymous handwritten letter shortly before walking out into the cold night. This simple clue gives Matthew a fresh path to investigate across town. The search for answers leads Matthew to the grand estate of Mayor Rowland. The large, expensive house stands proudly on a high hill overlooking the lower valley. It stands in sharp contrast to the modest wooden homes of regular working-class citizens. Inside, the atmosphere feels cold, formal, and completely devoid of genuine warmth or affection. Mayor Rowland is far more concerned with protecting his political career than finding his missing daughter. He attempts to downplay Emma's sudden vanishing to prevent panic among local town voters. Emma's mother sits silently in the living room, weeping quietly while holding a framed photograph. Matthew realizes that Emma grew up inside an emotionally distant and deeply oppressive home environment. Her perfect family life was a hollow shell hiding deep personal unhappiness. Matthew meets up with Winona Ringwald at the local high school parking lot. Winona was Emma's closest childhood friend, but her behavior feels anxious and unpredictable. She nervously bites her fingernails while avoiding direct eye contact with Matthew. Through careful questioning, Matthew discovers that Winona secretly envied Emma's beauty and high social standing. Winona admits that she and Emma had a bitter argument just 3 days before Christmas. She reveals that Emma had been sneaking out of her bedroom late at night. Emma was secretly meeting a mysterious older man near the abandoned mountain water tower. Winona claims she does not know the identity of this mysterious hidden individual. Matthew writes this critical detail into his notebook as a dark new suspect emerges. Navigating the winding roads of Mizzurna Falls requires active attention to your vehicle's physical mechanics. Driving your small red car is not just a fast way to move across the map. It is an active gameplay system that demands smart resource management and careful driving. The winding asphalt roads are slippery with black ice and heavy snowdrift. Steering too fast around sharp mountain curves can cause your car to spin out. Furthermore, your car's fuel tank drains steadily as you drive across the wide valley. If your gas gauge hits empty, your engine sputters and dies in the freezing dark. You must find an open gas station to refuel your car before night falls. Managing your gasoline becomes a constant test of survival during long nighttime searches. As Matthew digs deeper into the case, he encounters strange local folklore and dark superstitions. Older residents speak nervously about an ancient native legend known as the Great Bear Spirit. Local tradition claims that a dark mountain spirit wakes up during harsh winter storms to demand blood. Mysterious wooden charms and carved animal bones hang from high branches in the deep forest. The game constantly walks a subtle, unsettling line between realistic crime and supernatural horror. Are these violent events caused by an ancient, angry mountain entity haunting the forest? Or is a cruel human killer using local myths to hide his brutal crimes? This unsettling psychological ambiguity keeps you constantly questioning everything you see and hear in town. Matthew begins connecting the physical evidence surrounding Kathy's attack and Emma's sudden disappearance. He realizes that both events occurred within the exact same narrow 2-hour window on Christmas morning. Kathy was found bleeding near the woods at precisely 6 o'clock in the morning. Emma's bedroom was discovered empty just 1 hour later at 7 in the morning. Matthew discovers a torn piece of expensive fabric near the dark forest where Kathy fell. The rare cloth matches the material of a designer coat that Mayor Rowland recently bought for Emma. The shocking truth becomes clear. Emma was present in the dark forest when Kathy was attacked. Someone in Mizzurna Falls is desperately hiding the truth, and they will kill to protect their secrets. The continuous flow of real-time gameplay creates an intense, unavoidable sense of physical and emotional fatigue. The sky turns dark blue as the cold sun sets behind the towering mountain peaks. Streetlights flicker on along the main road, casting long shadows across the snow. Matthew's body grows tired, and his car's headlights barely cut through the rising fog. You watch the clock hands tick rapidly toward midnight on your first full day of searching. You have talked to witnesses, searched dark woods, and uncovered disturbing secrets about your quiet neighbors. Yet, Emma Rowland remains missing, and the killer is still walking free among the townsfolk. The first day ends with far more dangerous questions than solid, clear answers. Human Entertainment designed Mizzurna Falls to feel uncompromising, difficult, and deeply atmospheric for 1998. They refused to include modern gameplay luxuries like map markers, automatic quest trackers, or detailed hints. You are given complete control over your investigation, along with all the responsibility that comes with it. If you make mistakes or waste time driving aimlessly, the narrative consequences are permanent. The game does not pause to let you catch your breath or rethink your strategy. Time marches forward relentlessly, just like real life in a small mountain town under siege. This realistic approach turns every single choice into a high-stakes decision full of psychological weight. You feel the heavy burden resting squarely on Matthew's young shoulders with every mile driven. As night settles completely over Mizzurna Falls, a quiet, eerie stillness returns to the frozen valley. The snow continues to fall silently over dark pine forests, empty streets, and quiet wooden homes. Inside those warm houses, local citizens hide their ugliest secrets behind drawn curtains and locked doors. Matthew sits inside his small red car with the engine idling softly in the cold air. He looks at the fresh notes written inside his pocket journal under the dim dashboard light. The mystery of Emma Rowland is far larger and more dangerous than anyone in town imagined. Darkness has officially fallen over the Rocky Mountains, and day 2 of the investigation is about to begin. Matthew knows he cannot afford to make a single mistake when dawn breaks tomorrow. Chapter 3: Twin Peaks in the Rockies. Day 2 in Mizzurna Falls begins with a heavy mist rolling down from the high mountain peaks. Cold winter sunlight bleeds through the grey sky, casting long shadows across the snow. Matthew turns the key in his car ignition as freezing air fills the small cabin. The small engine sputters to life, vibrating against the quiet solitude of the morning. Standing in the middle of town, you quickly realize how much this setting owes to classic mystery storytelling. Japanese game developers in the late 90s were deeply fascinated by Western media like Twin Peaks. They took heavy inspiration from the famous TV show to create their own haunting American murder mystery. Just like the fictional town of Twin Peaks, Mizzurna Falls uses its quiet beauty to hide deep human corruption. Looking closely at why characters act this way reveals a community rotting from the inside out. The pristine white snow covers an ugly world of lies, greed, and broken dreams. To understand what happened to Emma Rowland, Matthew must first understand who she truly was. Most townsfolk describe Emma as a perfect young woman with a bright future ahead of her. She was the star student, the mayor's proud daughter, and a talented classical pianist. However, searching her empty bedroom reveals a completely different picture of her internal life. Tucked deep behind a stack of sheet music, Matthew discovers her private personal diary. Reading her handwritten words exposes a young girl suffering from overwhelming emotional isolation. She felt trapped inside a golden cage built by her controlling political father. Her entries describe a suffocating desire to escape the mountains and start a new life elsewhere. She hated the artificial expectations forced upon her by the people of Mizzurna Falls. Her diary entries also hint at a dangerous secret romance that ruined her peace of mind. Emma had been meeting an unknown man late at night in remote areas around the valley. She wrote about feeling both terrified and strangely drawn to this mysterious individual. He promised to take her away from Mizzurna Falls forever if she kept their meetings secret. Matthew realizes that Emma's polished public image was merely a survival mask she wore every day. The tragic reality is that nobody in town actually knew the real Emma Rowland. Her parents loved the idea of a perfect daughter, but ignored her deep sadness. Her classmates admired her beauty, but never bothered to ask about her private thoughts. This existential loneliness made her incredibly vulnerable to a dangerous predator lurking in the shadows. As Matthew drives across town on day 2, he encounters the hypocrisy infecting the adult population. Every person he interrogates seems far more worried about their personal reputation than finding Emma. Mayor Rowland spends his afternoon holding secret meetings with wealthy business partners at the local country club. He wants to keep the police investigation quiet so local real estate values do not drop. He treats his daughter's tragic disappearance as an inconvenient political scandal that might ruin his re-election campaign. Meanwhile, the local minister preaches about morality while hiding dark personal debts and secret land deals. The town doctor lies about medical records to protect wealthy patrons who pay him under the table. Small-town warmth is revealed as a complete illusion designed to protect the powerful. This sense of psychological decay extends deep into the working-class community as well. At the local auto repair shop, nervous mechanics whisper about illegal smuggling rings operating in the forest. They trade stolen vehicle parts and smuggled goods along the winding mountain highways at night. When Matthew asks direct questions, the workers shut their mouths and glare at him with open hostility. They view a teenager asking questions as a direct threat to their hidden criminal operations. Nobody wants to help the police because everyone is hiding their own illegal activities. The dark truth of Mizzurna Falls is that almost every citizen is guilty of something. This widespread paranoia creates a massive wall of silence that slows down Matthew's investigation at every turn. To make matters worse, ancient legends haunt the quiet corners of the mountain valley. Older residents frequently speak about the Great Bear Spirit that supposedly lives in the surrounding forests. According to local Native American folklore, this ancient mountain entity wakes up during harsh winter blizzards. The legend claims that the spirit demands human blood to satisfy its eternal hunger before returning to sleep. Deep in the woods, Matthew discovers strange wooden totems and carved animal bones hanging from high pine branches. Superstitious locals use these ancient myths to explain away the brutal, violent attacks in the forest. They would rather believe in a terrifying supernatural monster than face the reality of human evil. This urban legend acts as a convenient psychological shield for a very real human monster. Human Entertainment handled this local folklore with incredible narrative restraint and maturity. The game never falls into cheap supernatural gimmicks or easy magical explanations for the crime. Instead, it explores how real human beings use mythology to justify their own dark impulses and fears. The Great Bear Spirit is not a physical demon tearing through the woods at night. It is a psychological projection of the community's collective guilt, fear, and deep historic trauma. By blaming an ancient spirit, the townsfolk can wash their hands of any personal moral responsibility. They can pretend that Kathy's bloody wounds and Emma's disappearance were simply natural disasters beyond human control. Matthew stands as the sole voice of cold, rational logic fighting against this comforting lie. The physical experience of playing the game reinforces this intense feeling of emotional and spatial isolation. Navigating the town on retro hardware creates an uncanny, dreamlike visual atmosphere for the player. Low polygoned building models fade into thick white fog just a few feet ahead of your bumper. The soft scan lines of a vintage color television screen soften the sharp geometric edges of the world. Darkness falls quickly over the mountains, leaving you alone on empty roads with only your headlights. The quiet sound design consists mostly of howling winter wind and soft tires rolling over cold snow. The total lack of background music during driving sequences heightens the oppressive sense of loneliness. You feel like a ghost drifting through a forgotten world that is slowly freezing to death. The mechanical design of the game constantly forces you to confront the harsh reality of passing time. While you stand inside a quiet house reading clue notes, the clock continues to tick away. If you spend 3 hours chasing a false lead, those 3 hours are gone forever. You cannot reload an earlier save file without losing hours of genuine physical progress and hard-earned knowledge. This unforgiving mechanic mimics the real-world weight of living through a desperate, high-stakes emergency. Every choice carries real emotional consequences, and every mistake brings Emma closer to a tragic fate. The game refuses to comfort you with easy restarts or helpful safety nets. You are forced to live with the heavy consequences of your own analytical choices. Throughout this lonely journey, Matthew's internal motivations remain deeply poignant and tragic. He is not a trained police detective or an invincible action hero seeking glory. He is simply a tired high school student fighting for a girl he secretly loved from afar. On his wooden desk sits a small framed photograph taken during the previous summer break. It shows Matthew, Emma, Winona and their friends smiling together under the warm, bright sun. Looking at that photograph reminds Matthew of a happier time that feels completely lost forever. He remembers sitting with Emma beside the frozen lake just hours before she vanished into the night. She looked out over the quiet water and asked if he ever wished he could simply disappear. Matthew deeply regrets his passive response during that quiet final conversation by the lake. He had brushed off her sad question as a simple joke, failing to see her silent cry for help. Now, that memory burns inside his chest like hot coal every time he steps out into the snow. His intense drive to solve the mystery is fueled by profound personal guilt and stubborn loyalty. He knows that if he gives up, Emma will become just another cold file in a police cabinet. He refuses to let her memory be erased by the cynical adults controlling the town. This emotional anchor gives the narrative a human heart amidst all the dark crime and political corruption. By the middle of the third day, the narrative web tightens significantly around several primary suspects. Matthew connects Emma's secret meetings to an abandoned lumber mill hidden deep in the northern hills. He discovers that high-ranking town officials were using the remote mill for secret, illegal gatherings. Emma had accidentally discovered their dark activities while exploring the woods near her family home. She realized that her own father was actively involved in a dangerous land grab conspiracy. To protect their lucrative financial secrets, the powerful men of Mizzurna Falls decided to silence her forever. Kathy Flannery had simply walked into the wrong part of the forest at the wrong time. Her brutal attack was an attempt by a desperate killer to create a terrifying distraction. This shocking revelation transforms the story from a simple missing person case into a dark political thriller. The danger facing Matthew shifts from dark forest rumors to cold, calculated human violence. The very people tasked with protecting the town are the ones orchestrating its deep psychological decay. Sheriff Perez, Mayor Rowland, and their wealthy allies will stop at nothing to keep their secrets buried. Matthew realizes he cannot trust a single adult wearing an official badge or expensive business suit. He is an 18-year-old kid armed only with a pocket notebook, standing against the most powerful men in the valley. The frozen mountain landscape becomes a deadly chessboard where one wrong move means instant death. The genius of Mizzurna Falls lies in how seamlessly it blends these complex thematic layers together. It combines small-town melodrama, political corruption, local folklore, and raw teenage emotion into a unified narrative. The game treats its players with immense intellectual respect, expecting them to piece together these subtle connections. It does not explain every character's motivation through long, boring exposition cutscenes. Instead, it allows you to discover the truth through organic exploration, careful observation, and active deduction. As Day 3 comes to a close, the true horror of Mizzurna Falls stands fully revealed. The tragedy of Emma Rowland is not just about a missing girl in the woods. It is the tragic story of a town that sacrificed its own children to protect its ugly lies. Matthew drives his small car up the winding dirt road toward the abandoned mountain lumber mill. Heavy snow begins falling again, wiping out his tire tracks almost as fast as he makes them. The gas gauge sits dangerously close to empty, and the freezing wind rattles the car doors. Up ahead, the dark silhouette of the old wooden mill looms against the stormy night sky. Somewhere inside those pitch-black buildings lies the final truth behind Emma's vanishing and the killer waiting in the dark. Matthew checks his pocket watch one last time before turning off the engine. The real-time clock is running out fast, and there is no turning back now. Chapter 4. The Clock Tower Curse. To understand why Mizzurna Falls vanished into obscurity, you must first examine the hardware of 1998. The original Sony PlayStation was a groundbreaking video game console for its time. However, its internal processing power was surprisingly modest compared to modern computers. The console operated on a central processor running at just 33 MHz. It featured a tiny system memory of only 2 MB. Most game developers in the late 90s built small corridor environments for this hardware. They kept players inside narrow hallways to conserve precious memory and processing power. Human Entertainment rejected those safe design choices completely. They set out to build a fully three-dimensional, living American mountain town. Their massive ambitions pushed the fragile PlayStation console directly to its absolute breaking point. Director Taichi Ishizuka led a small, dedicated development team called Sun Studio inside Human Entertainment. He had recently completed a long, eye-opening road trip across the United States. He traveled across the vast American countryside riding on long-distance Greyhound buses. That memorable trip inspired him to build a game centered around total spatial freedom. He wanted players to experience driving down open mountain highways surrounded by nature. His small team consisted of only 4 computer programmers and 3 graphic designers. They had roughly 12 months to build an entire dynamic world from scratch. They chose 3-dimensional polygons over simple 2-dimensional art to give players complete driving freedom. It was an exceptionally bold decision that brought overwhelming technical challenges. Pushing the PlayStation hardware so far created immediate visual and mathematical complications on screen. The original console lacked hardware components to calculate complex perspective math smoothly. Because of this hardware limitation, 3-dimensional polygon textures constantly warped and jittered. Building walls appeared to bend unnaturally whenever Matthew drove his red car past them. The hardware could only render objects located a short distance in front of the camera. To conceal this limitation, the programs filled the mountain valley with thick, rolling fog. What felt like a brilliant, spooky visual choice was actually a desperate technical trick. The atmospheric mist allowed the system to draw buildings right before the player arrived. Managing memory allocation inside the console was a constant nightmare for the 4 programmers. The system memory held only 2 MB of data at any given moment. The game engine had to track over 20 independent characters moving across town. The central processor constantly calculated where every single citizen was walking in real time. At the same time, it managed car physics, boat controls, and weather effects. Loading individual schedules directly from the spinning CD-ROM drive caused frequent gameplay stuttering. The disk drive mechanism worked continuously, reading new character instructions off the plastic disc. The whole software system was held together by clever tricks, patience, and sheer determination. Because the game exceeded system capabilities, the original Japanese release contained notable software bugs. Players occasionally experienced sudden software freezes, broken story triggers, and weird visual glitches. Sometimes a key suspect failed to spawn at their designated location on schedule. If a story event failed to trigger properly, players were permanently locked out of progress. The development team simply ran out of time and budget to polish their creation. They had to ship the game on December 23, 1998. Yet, despite those technical flaws, the game stood as a monumental triumph of design. It created a living open world long before the rest of the industry. The studio behind this technical miracle was Human Entertainment, a famous Japanese developer. Founded in the late 1980s, they created legendary games like Clock Tower. They built a strong reputation for taking daring creative risks and tackling dark subjects. However, severe financial troubles hit the studio as the new millennium drew near. Sales for Mizzurna Falls were quite modest in Japan due to its complex mechanics. Japanese players found the strict, real-time clock confusing and difficult to navigate on launch. In the year 2000, Human Entertainment officially declared bankruptcy and closed forever. The talented studio vanished, leaving behind a rich legacy of experimental gaming art. The sudden collapse of the company left Mizzurna Falls completely stranded in Japan. The original source code and project files vanished into complicated corporate bankruptcy archives. Western game publishers ignored the title because translating complex mystery games was expensive. The game never received an official English release on store shelves in America. The development team scattered across the Japanese gaming industry to find new work. Famous director Suda51 left the studio to found his own company, Grasshopper Manufacture. Meanwhile, director Taichi Ishizuka eventually retired from game development to become a tour guide. He moved to Canada to lead nature tours through the majestic Rocky Mountains. For over a decade, Mizzurna Falls remained a forgotten relic among Western gamers. Obscure internet forums and retro blogs occasionally posted articles about a mystery game. Dedicated retro fans whispered about a title that built Shenmue ideas on PlayStation hardware. Yet almost nobody outside of Japan could actually play or understand the story. The dense Japanese dialogue prevented non-fluent players from making any real progress. Without knowing Japanese, players could not follow clue notes or interview key witnesses. The game became a mythic ghost, praised by historians but played by almost no one. Translating a vintage PlayStation video game is a surprisingly difficult technical discipline. Japanese text uses complex character systems that fit neatly into dedicated memory blocks. English text uses single letters that require completely different visual spacing on screen. Inserting English words into Japanese source code often corrupts memory allocation pointers. Furthermore, the English language takes up far more physical storage space than Japanese text. Translating a single Japanese sentence often yields 3 times as many English letters. The game's limited memory banks simply could not store the massive translated English script. Early attempts to hack the disk files resulted in frequent system crashes. The long, difficult journey to translate the game began in 2014. A dedicated freelance translator known online as Resident Evie tackled the massive translation project. She spent years carefully translating thousands of lines of complex Japanese dialogue into English. She painstakingly documented every branch of the story, every character interview, and every clue. In 2018, she published her complete English script translation online for public access. Her goal was to inspire skilled software hackers to build a playable patch. She generously offered her translated text file to anyone willing to attempt the task. Turning that written text file into a working game patch proved incredibly difficult. In 2019, a famous software hacker named Gemini tried to construct a patch. However, inserting the massive English text file overwhelmed the engine's memory budget. The test version suffered from severe stability problems and frequent software crashes during gameplay. Gemini chose to pull the unfinished test patch offline to avoid fan frustration. For a brief moment, it appeared that Mizzurna Falls was truly cursed. The complex title seemed destined to remain locked behind a language barrier forever. The final breakthrough occurred during global isolation in the year 2020. A talented mobile software engineer named Nikita joined forces with editor Sirasan. Together, they approached the technical coding problems using modern computer tools. Nikita engineered a brand new text compression tool specifically for the game engine. This custom tool compressed English text into tiny memory spaces without crashing the system. They finally solved the memory storage problem that had stumped developers for decades. Their clever software patch allowed the PlayStation console to display full English sentences smoothly. While Nikita solved the technical programming hurdles, Sirasan focused on editing the dialogue. The original Japanese script was extremely long, formal, and tightly packed with data. Working directly with Resident Evil's full translation, Sirasan polished every line of text. He edited the dialogue to sound like authentic American teenagers speaking in the late 90s. He carefully trimmed wordy sentences while preserving every clue, detail, and character emotion. His thoughtful editing ensured the translated text fit perfectly inside the game's text boxes. The result was a natural, highly readable English script that felt officially localized. In March of 2021, after more than 22 years of waiting, it happened. The completed fan translation patch was officially released to the public online. Video game historians and retro gaming sites celebrated the patch as a historical event. For the first time, Western players could download the patch and play through. They stepped into Matthew's boots and explored the snowy streets of Mizzurna Falls. Players discovered that this forgotten Japanese game was remarkably visionary for its era. The lost pioneer of open-world storytelling was finally accessible to players worldwide. Playing the translated game today allows us to appreciate the true value of preservation. Video game history is fragile, and many groundbreaking titles risk being forgotten forever. Without dedicated fan communities, masterpieces like Mizzurna Falls would stay lost behind language barriers. Programmers, translators, and archivists spent thousands of unpaid hours preserving this digital art. Their passionate work rescued Taiichi Ishizuka's vision from permanent historical obscurity. They gave a forgotten PlayStation masterpiece the global audience it always deserved. The history of Mizzurna Falls proves how artistic vision can overcome technical limits. The developers refused to let hardware constraints stop them from making something original. They built a living, dynamic world on hardware that was never designed for it. Even when their company collapsed, their creative artwork survived inside digital memory. Today, the legacy of Mizzurna Falls inspires game designers and retro historians alike. It stands as a proud testament to human creativity and technological passion. Chapter 5. The Final Countdown. December 31st arrives with a bitter, freezing snowstorm covering the entire valley. The real-time clock inside the game ticks steadily toward its ultimate final deadline. 7 full virtual days have passed since Emma Rowland vanished into the cold night. Matthew Williams stands at a crucial crossroads that will decide the fate of everyone in town. The choices you made during the past week now collide in a dramatic final showdown. Every decision, missed payphone call, and fuel stop now carries permanent narrative weight. You are about to experience one of the most complex branching endings on original PlayStation hardware. To understand how branching choices function in Mizzurna Falls, you must study its strict structure. Most video games from the late 90s offered simple dialogue choices right before the credits. They allowed players to save their progress and view every ending within a few minutes. Human Entertainment rejected that easy design approach to create something far more meaningful and punishing. In Mizzurna Falls, your final ending is determined by every single action across 7 days. If you missed a tiny clue on day 2, you cannot unlock the true ending. The game holds you strictly accountable for how you managed your limited daily schedule. The vast majority of first-time players will experience one of the game's tragic bad endings. If Matthew wastes too much time driving aimlessly, the clock eventually runs out on New Year's Eve. The cold morning light breaks over the mountains, but Emma Rowland is never found alive. In some failed timelines, police officers discover her frozen body buried beneath a deep mountain snowdrift. In other tragic scenarios, she disappears completely without leaving a single trace behind for her family. Matthew is left standing alone in the cold, haunted by his failure to save her. These dark endings feel heavy, cruel, and painfully realistic for an investigative adventure game. The tragedy deepens as the town's powerful elites quickly cover up the entire horrific affair. Mayor Rowland holds a public press conference to announce that the investigation is officially closed. He lies to the public, claiming his daughter simply ran away to a big city. Sheriff Perez quietly closes the case files and files them away in a dark, locked cabinet. The local business leaders return to their wealthy routines while pretending nothing bad ever happened. Kathy Flannery recovers slowly from her physical injuries, but her spirit remains broken by fear. The ugly truth remains buried beneath the snow, protected by small-town lies and institutional corruption. However, if you manage your time perfectly, the narrative reveals its true canonical path. Matthew follows a subtle trail of clues leading directly to the abandoned mountain lumber mill. He discovers that Emma was not kidnapped by a wild beast or an ancient spirit. She was held captive by powerful men who wanted to hide their illegal financial dealings. Emma had accidentally uncovered official papers proving local leaders were stealing land from town residents. When she threatened to expose their dark corruption, they decided to silence her permanently. The local urban legend of the Great Bear Spirit was fabricated to hide human evil. Matthew steps through the creaking wooden doors of the dark, abandoned lumber mill. Cold wind whistles through broken glass windows as snow drifts across the wooden floorboards. In the shadows, he finally confronts the true killer standing beside a trembling, tied-up Emma. The tense final confrontation does not rely on flashy, fast-paced action or shooting mechanics. Instead, it demands quick, logical thinking and correct dialogue choices under extreme time pressure. One wrong response during this final conversation will cause the villain to pull the trigger. Matthew must use every piece of physical evidence gathered across the valley to break the villain down. Even when Matthew successfully saves Emma's physical life, the story retains its quiet, lingering sadness. Emma is rescued, but the innocent girl who played classical piano is gone forever. She has seen the ugly, corrupt nature of her father and her quiet hometown. The comfortable shelter of her childhood has been completely destroyed by greed, betrayal, and violence. As emergency vehicles arrive with flashing red lights, Emma sits silently in the back of an ambulance. She looks at Matthew with a sad, tired smile that acknowledges everything they lost. Saving her life could not repair the deep emotional scars left by small-town hypocrisy. The true tragedy of Emma Rowland lies in what her story reveals about youth and isolation. She represented every young person who felt trapped inside a small, stifling rural environment. Her desperate wish to escape Mizzurna Falls made her an easy target for dangerous people. The town promised safety, quiet beauty, and strong community values on its festive holiday surface. Yet, underneath that charming exterior lived a cold indifference toward the suffering of young people. Emma's journey serves as a powerful cautionary tale about the emotional danger of hidden lives. Her sad story echoes long after the final credits roll across the dark television screen. The mystery surrounding Emma also highlights how small towns process collective trauma through local folklore. When horrible acts occur within a tight-knit community, citizens often seek comforting magical explanations. Blaming an ancient mountain monster allows people to preserve their relationships with quiet neighbors and relatives. It creates a convenient narrative shield that protects the social hierarchy from total psychological collapse. Human entertainment used this psychological phenomenon to critique how real communities handle inconvenient, shocking crimes. By unmasking the true criminal, Matthew destroys the comfortable lie protecting the town's rotten foundation. Looking back at Mizzurna Falls today highlights its incredible impact on modern video game design. Human entertainment created design concepts that were decades ahead of the surrounding gaming industry. Their dynamic real-time clock system directly influenced Yu Suzuki when he developed Shenmue for Dreamcast. Nintendo later used similar real-time schedule mechanics to create The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Both games recognized that a ticking clock creates unparalleled narrative tension and emotional immersion for players. Mizzurna Falls proved that virtual worlds could feel alive without relying on constant combat mechanics. The most direct spiritual successor to Mizzurna Falls arrived years later in Deadly Premonition. Game director Swery65 built a cult classic centered around an FBI agent solving a small-town mystery. Just like Mizzurna Falls, Deadly Premonition featured driving mechanics, unpredictable weather, and dynamic character schedules. Both games drew heavy artistic inspiration from David Lynch's iconic television masterpiece, Twin Peaks. They captured the same strange blend of small-town charm, offbeat humor, and deep psychological horror. Playing Mizzurna Falls today reveals the foundational blueprint that made modern open-world investigative games possible. Modern indie developers continue to draw deep inspiration from this long-lost PlayStation experimental masterpiece. Contemporary games like Outer Wilds and Disco Elysium carry forward its bold, unguided philosophy. They trust the player's intelligence, refusing to rely on hand-holding objective markers or simple hint systems. They demonstrate that narrative mystery games are most powerful when players discover clues for themselves. Mizzurna Falls showed that player agency and structured narrative storytelling could coexist in an open world. Its brave design choices established a creative benchmark that game designers still study with immense respect. At its core, Mizzurna Falls is a game about the haunting, unstoppable nature of passing time. Time inside the game is a physical, relentless force that constantly slips through your fingers. You cannot slow down the clock, pause the falling snow, or undo your past mistakes. Every choice consumes a piece of your limited life, just as it does in reality. The ticking game clock serves as a quiet reminder that opportunities rarely wait for us. Matthew's desperate race against time mirrors our own human struggle against loss, decay, and missed moments. The visual aesthetic of Mizzurna Falls remains deeply iconic for fans of retro gaming history. Low polygon graphics, jagged edges, and pixelated textures create a strange, dreamlike atmosphere that modern visuals cannot replicate. Viewing the game through the soft glow of a CRT display enhances its vintage aesthetic. The red taillights of Matthew's compact car cutting through thick mountain fog evoke immediate atmospheric nostalgia. The haunting minimalist soundtrack underlines the deep sense of spatial loneliness haunting the quiet valley roads. These retro visual elements combine to form an unforgettable artistic experience that feels preserved in time. The tragic end of human entertainment adds an extra layer of real-world melancholy to this masterpiece. The studio spent years pushing technical boundaries with creative projects like Clock Tower and SOS. Their collapse in the year 2000 marked the end of an unusually brave era in game development. Yet, their ambitious spirit lives on through the works of developers who refused to follow safe conventions. Mizzurna Falls stands as the studio's ultimate creative achievement, showcasing what happens when artists take genuine risks. It remains a shining beacon of experimental late 90s game development that refused to compromise. The dedicated fan community that rescued Mizzurna Falls preserved a vital piece of artistic history. Translators, coders, and retro historians spent years working without pay to bring this game to light. Their passionate efforts ensured that Taichi Ishizuka's vision would not remain buried in corporate archives forever. Because of their hard work, global audiences can finally experience this forgotten pioneer of gaming history. They allowed us to walk through the snowy streets, drive down mountain highways, and search for truth. They proved that great art deserves to be remembered, preserved, and shared across language barriers. As the final New Year's Eve fireworks explode over the mountains of Mizzurna Falls, silence returns. The quiet town rests beneath a fresh blanket of white snow, hiding its secrets once again. Matthew Williams stands beside his small red car, watching the cold morning sun rise over the peaks. The tragedy of Emma Rowland transformed him from an innocent high school student into a hardened witness. He proved that truth is worth fighting for, even in a world governed by lies and silence. The forgotten masterpiece of 1998 finally takes its rightful place in video game history. The story is complete, but the haunting echoes of Mizzurna Falls will remain with us forever.